The first thing I noticed after my night shift wasn't the silence. It was the empty shelf. I stood in my bedroom doorway, too tired to understand what I was seeing. My backpack slipped from my shoulder and landed on the floor with a dull thud. No. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. The old wooden shelf that had held my childhood for almost 20 years was completely bare. Every action figure, every model car, every comic book, every collectible I had spent years saving for. Gone. My heartbeat quickened as I rushed across the room. This has to be a joke. I searched every shelf, every drawer, even under the thin mattress I had slept on for the last 12 years. Dust covered the empty spaces where my treasures had once stood. Then my stomach dropped. The handmade wooden train my grandfather had carved for me before he died was missing too. No. I whispered the word again, but this time my voice shook. I stormed into the kitchen. Dad. Robert looked up from the newspaper without the slightest concern. You're finally awake. Where are my toys? He folded one page. I sold them. For a second, I honestly thought I had heard him wrong. What did you say? I sold them yesterday. I stared at him. You sold my collection? Yes. Without asking me? I didn't think I needed your permission. My hands curled into fists. They belonged to me. They were sitting there doing nothing. They were my memories. They were old toys. They weren't toys to me. He sighed as if I were wasting his time. I needed the money. For what? Lily's wedding. The words felt like someone had punched me in the chest. You sold everything I loved, for Lily? It's a family wedding. I'm family too. You should be proud to help your sister. You never asked me if I wanted to help. I made the decision. You made it with my property. Robert leaned back in his chair. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. Bigger? I laughed bitterly. You emptied my entire childhood while I was working all night. Before he could answer, Lily walked into the kitchen with her phone in one hand. Dad, the florist wants to. She stopped when she saw my face. What's going on? I looked directly at her. Did you know Dad sold my collection? She blinked. He mentioned selling some things. Some things? He said it would help with the wedding. And you said yes. She looked uncomfortable. I didn't think you'd care this much. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You didn't think I'd care? They were old. They were part of my life. She crossed her arms. Ethan, weddings cost money. So my memories became your budget. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Robert stood up. That's enough. No. I said enough. I've stayed quiet for years. He frowned. What does that mean? It means I've slept on a mattress on the floor for 12 years. So? So? I pointed toward the hallway. Lily has the biggest bedroom, a new bed every few years, new furniture, new clothes, vacations, private lessons. Robert interrupted me. She's younger. And? She needed those things. What did I need? You managed. I managed because nobody gave me a choice. The room fell silent. Lily looked away. I laughed softly, but there wasn't any happiness in it. You know what's funny? Neither of them answered. I kept telling myself there had to be a reason. For what? For why I always came last. Robert sighed. You're acting like a victim. I am one. You have food. I worked for most of it. You have a home. I sleep on the floor. You have family. I looked at both of them before answering. Do I? Neither of them spoke. I walked back to my room, closed the door, and sat on the mattress. The empty shelf looked colder than the walls around it. I opened the bottom drawer, hoping something had survived. Only one faded photograph remained. I picked it up. I was 7 years old. Grandpa knelt beside me with a smile, and I held the little wooden train he had carved by hand. My eyes filled with tears. I ran back into the kitchen. Dad. He didn't even look surprised. What now? The wooden train. What about it? You sold that too? He nodded. It was worth more than I expected. My breathing stopped. Grandpa made that for me before he died. I know. You knew, and you still sold it. It helped pay the bills. I stared at him, unable to say another word. In that moment, I realized I hadn't just lost my toys. I had lost the last piece of someone who had truly loved me. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if the man standing in front of me had ever loved me at all. I barely slept after what happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the empty shelf. When morning came, I dragged myself to work with a heavy chest. I kept hearing Dad's words. They were just toys. No. They were the only part of my childhood that had survived. As soon as I reached the warehouse, my coworker Noah noticed my face. "You look terrible," he said. "I feel worse." "What happened?" I stayed quiet for a moment before saying, "My dad sold everything I owned." "What do you mean?" "My childhood collection. Every action figure, every model car, every comic book." Noah frowned. "Without asking you?" I nodded. "He sold them for Lily's wedding." Noah stared at me. "Seriously?" "I wish I were joking." He leaned against a stack of boxes. "Ethan, that's not normal." I forced a smile. "Nothing in my house is." We worked in silence for a few minutes before Noah spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why do you still live there?" His question stopped me. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." I sighed. "I guess I've been hoping things would change." "And have they?" I laughed quietly. "No. They never will." His words stayed in my head for the rest of the shift. During lunch, we sat outside on a bench. Noah handed me a sandwich. "So, has it always been like this?" I looked at the ground. "Pretty much." "What happened after your mom died?" I swallowed hard. "I was 10. "I'm sorry." "After the funeral, everything changed." "How?" "My dad stopped looking at me the same way." "And Lily?" "She was only 7. So he focused on her?" "He gave her everything." I smiled sadly. I kept telling myself she needed him more. But I was a kid too. Noah stayed silent. "I got my first part-time job at 16, I continued. "Why?" "I wanted new shoes." "Your dad wouldn't buy them?" "He bought Lily a laptop that same month." Noah shook his head. "That's unbelievable." "I paid for my school trips." "What about Lily?" "Dad paid for every vacation she wanted." "You never complained?" "I tried once." "What happened?" "He told me life wasn't fair." Noah looked angry. "And you believed him?" "I didn't have much choice. After work, I drove home, but I couldn't bring myself to go inside. I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes. Finally, my phone rang. Lily. I stared at her name before answering. "Hello. Ethan, where are you?" "Outside." "Oh, good. I wanted your opinion." "My opinion?" "Which flower arrangement looks better? White roses or pink?" I closed my eyes. "Lily." "What? Did you really call me about flowers?" "Well, yes. The day after Dad sold everything I owned." She sounded confused. "I thought you were over that." I laughed in disbelief. "Over it? They were old toys." "They weren't toys." "You keep saying that." "Because you keep refusing to hear me." She sighed. "You're making the wedding stressful." I felt something inside me break. "I'm making it stressful?" "Yes." "You know what was stressful?" "What?" "Sleeping on the floor for 12 years while you got everything." "I didn't ask for that." "You never questioned it either." She stayed quiet. Then she softly said, "I have to go." The call ended. I looked at the dark screen for several seconds. She still didn't understand. Or maybe she never wanted to. When I finally walked inside the house, nothing had changed. Dad watched television. Lily looked through wedding magazines. No one apologized. No one even mentioned the collection. I quietly walked into my room. The empty shelf greeted me again. I sat on the thin mattress and rested my back against the wall. 12 years. I had accepted so much because I thought family meant enduring pain. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe staying had only taught them they could keep hurting me. A message suddenly appeared on my phone. "Noah, I asked my cousin about collectible toys." I replied, "Why?" His answer came almost immediately. "Because some of those old figures can be worth thousands." I frowned. "Thousands?" Another message arrived. "Ethan? I think your collection may have been worth far more than your father told you." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. For the first time since everything disappeared, I stopped thinking about what I had lost. I started wondering why my father had been so desperate to sell it. I barely touched my breakfast the next morning. Noah's message kept replaying in my head. Your collection may have been worth far more than your father told you. I grabbed my phone and called him. Morning, he answered. I need your cousin's number. I figured you'd say that. A few seconds later, he sent it to me. His cousin worked at a collectibles store and quickly identified the buyer from a receipt I had found in the trash. An hour later, I stood outside a small shop filled with vintage toys and comic books. The sign above the door reads Collectibles. I took a deep breath and walked inside. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, packed with rare figures, model cars, comic books, and old trains. A man with glasses looked up from behind the counter. Can I help you? Are you Marcus Reed? I am. My name is Ethan. He smiled politely. Nice to meet you. I think you bought my collection. His smile slowly disappeared. Your collection? My father sold it yesterday. Marcus became very quiet. I didn't know. You didn't? No. He stepped out from behind the counter. I believed everything belonged to him. It didn't. I'm sorry. He sounded genuinely upset. I would never knowingly buy stolen property. I looked around the store. Are my things still here? Some of them. He led me toward a display room. The moment I walked inside, my heart sank. My action figures. My model cars. My comic books. They were all carefully displayed inside glass cases. For a second, it felt like visiting old friends. I reached toward one figure but stopped before touching the glass. Marcus noticed. You took good care of them. I spent years collecting them. I can tell. He unlocked one display case. Look. He handed me a superhero figure. I smiled sadly. I saved 6 months to buy this. Marcus nodded. It has become very rare. Really? He opened a folder on his desk. This figure alone is worth almost $3,000. My eyes widened. What? He pointed toward another shelf. That limited edition model car is worth nearly $4,000. And the comics? Several are first editions. How much? He looked at me carefully. Ethan, your entire collection is worth tens of thousands of dollars. I felt dizzy. My father said he only got enough money for the wedding. Marcus slowly shook his head. I paid him much more than that. I couldn't speak. Every answer created another question. Marcus sighed. He seemed desperate. Desperate? He accepted my first offer without negotiating. That's not like him. He kept checking his phone. I frowned. As if someone was waiting for the money. Marcus nodded. Exactly. Just then the shop door opened. A tall man in a neat suit walked inside. Oh, Marcus. Marcus smiled. Daniel. The man noticed me. Sorry. Am I interrupting? No, Marcus replied. This is Ethan. Daniel offered his hand. Nice to meet you. I shook it. You too. Marcus looked between us. You actually know each other. Daniel looked surprised. We do. I nodded. You're engaged to my sister. His expression changed immediately. Oh. For a moment, none of us spoke. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. I've wanted to talk to you. Why? I've noticed things. What things? The way your father treats you. I crossed my arms. You noticed? It was hard not to. I laughed bitterly. Funny. Nobody else seemed to. Daniel looked uncomfortable. I didn't know how to say anything. You could have tried. You're right. Marcus quietly stepped away, giving us privacy. Daniel lowered his voice. Ethan, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Did your father ever mention financial problems? I frowned. No. None at all? He always acted like everything was fine. Daniel looked toward the front window before speaking again. I've seen him arguing with people on the phone. About what? I don't know. But I heard him say he had to find money before it was too late. A chill ran down my spine. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't think your toys were sold only for the wedding. Before I could answer, Marcus returned carrying an envelope. I almost forgot. What is it? A copy of the sales agreement. I opened it. The number printed at the bottom stole my breath. It was nearly 5 times larger than the amount Dad had claimed. I slowly looked up. He lied. Marcus nodded. There is something else. What? The day your father came here. Yes? He looked terrified. Terrified of what? Marcus sighed. I don't know. He paused before adding one final sentence. But I remember thinking he wasn't selling a toy collection. He was trying to escape a disaster. I folded the paper with shaking hands. For the first time, I realized my father's biggest secret wasn't the toys he had sold. It was the truth he had been hiding from all of us. I folded the sales agreement with shaking hands. For the first time, I realized my father's biggest secret wasn't the toys he had sold. It was the truth he had been hiding from all of us. I walked out of Marcus's shop with my mind spinning. The afternoon sun felt unusually hot, but I barely noticed it. Every step felt heavier than the last. My phone buzzed. It was Daniel. Daniel, can we talk? I stared at the message for a few seconds before replying. Me, sure. He sent me the address of a quiet coffee shop across town. When I arrived, Daniel was already waiting in the corner, looking nervous. A thick brown folder rested on the table between 2 untouched cups of coffee. He stood as I approached. Thanks for coming. I almost didn't. I know. I sat across from him and looked at the folder. What's in there? He let out a slow breath. Things I wish I had never seen. My heart started racing. Daniel, just tell me. He pushed the folder toward me. I copied these before your father noticed they were missing. I slowly opened it. Bank statements. Credit card bills. Loan notices. Past due payment letters. The deeper I looked, the worse it became. What is all this? Your father's finances. I looked up. He always told us everything was fine. He lied. I flipped through another page. One payment immediately caught my attention. The amount matched the money Marcus had paid for my collection. This deposit. Daniel nodded. That's the money from your toys. I kept reading. A few pages later, several large withdrawals appeared. Wedding venue. Catering. Florist. Then another payment. I frowned. This one isn't for the wedding. No. What is it? Daniel hesitated. A business loan. I looked at him in disbelief. You mean? Only part of the money paid for Lily's wedding. I slowly closed the folder. The rest went toward debts. Silence filled the cafe. I finally asked the question I had been afraid to hear. How bad is it? Daniel rubbed his forehead. Worse than anyone knows. He lost his business years ago. I know. But he never stopped borrowing. I couldn't believe it. So every time he acted confident, he was pretending. And every time he told me there wasn't enough money, there actually wasn't. I laughed bitterly. I blamed Lily. Daniel shook his head. I don't think she knows. Are you sure? I've been planning this wedding with her for months. And? She honestly believes your father has everything under control. I looked out the window. Cars passed by as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, my entire life kept falling apart. Daniel spoke again. Ethan. What? I've wanted to say something for a long time. I looked back at him. The way your father treats you. What about it? It's wrong. I smiled without happiness. I've waited years to hear someone say that. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. You weren't the one hurting me. No. But I watched it happen. His honesty surprised me. I appreciate you telling me. He nodded. I hope someday Lily understands too. So do I. We left the cafe together. Before getting into his car, Daniel stopped. There's one person you should talk to. Who? Your mother's sister. Aunt Sarah? Yes. I haven't seen her in years. Maybe it's time. I watched him drive away. For a few minutes, I simply stood there. Then I got into my car. An hour later, I pulled into a quiet neighborhood lined with old maple trees. The white brick house at the end of the street looked exactly as I remembered. I walked to the front door and knocked. A few seconds later, it opened. A woman with silver blonde hair stared at me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then her eyes filled with tears. Ethan? Hi, Aunt Sarah. She covered her mouth. Oh, sweetheart. Before I could say anything else, she wrapped her arms around me. It had been years since someone hugged me like that. Not out of obligation. Out of love. She stepped back and smiled through her tears. Come inside. Her living room smelled like fresh tea and old books. Family photographs covered the shelves. One picture immediately caught my eye. My mother. She was smiling while holding my hand when I was little. I couldn't stop looking at it. You have her smile, Sarah said softly. I swallowed hard. I don't remember her voice anymore. Sarah reached for my hand. She talked about you every single day. You remember? I remember everything. Tears blurred my vision. I always wondered if she loved Lily more. Sarah looked shocked. Ethan, never think that. I had to. No. She squeezed my hand. Your mother loved both of you equally. Then why? My brother-in-law changed after she died. You mean Dad? She nodded sadly. I tried to stay close. What happened? He didn't like me asking questions. What questions? Why you slept on the floor? My eyes widened. You knew? I knew. Why didn't you help me? I tried. What do you mean? I offered to let you stay here during school holidays. I don't remember. He always refused for you. I looked down. He told me you were too busy. Sarah sighed. He told me you didn't want to visit. I felt sick. He lied to both of us. Yes. Silence settled between us. Finally I whispered, I don't want to spend the rest of my life feeling sorry for myself. Sarah smiled gently. Then don't. I want the truth. You deserve it. She stood and walked toward an old wooden cabinet. Carefully, she removed a small carved box. It looked old enough to belong to another lifetime. She placed it on the table between us. My heart started pounding. What is this? She rested her hand on the lid. Something your father hoped you would never discover. I looked at her. What do you mean? She took a deep breath before answering. Ethan. Her voice trembled. Your mother left something for you and Lily before she passed away. I frowned. What was it? Sarah slowly opened the box. Inside were old papers, photographs, and a sealed envelope with my mother's handwriting. Beside it rested another document. She looked directly into my eyes. I believe your father never told you about your mother's inheritance. My world seemed to stop. Everything I thought I knew about my family was beginning to fall apart. Everything I thought I knew about my family was beginning to fall apart. I couldn't take my eyes off the sealed envelope lying inside the wooden box. My mother's handwriting covered the front in neat blue ink. Asterisk asterisk for my son, Ethan. Asterisk asterisk my fingers trembled. I can't believe this. Aunt Sarah gave me a gentle smile. Take your time. I thought Mom never left anything for me. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered. She left more than you know. I carefully picked up the envelope. I've waited 18 years to hear her voice again. You'll hear it now. I slowly broke the seal. Inside was a folded letter that had turned slightly yellow with age. I unfolded it carefully. The first line made my eyes fill with tears. Asterisk asterisk my dearest Ethan, asterisk asterisk I stopped reading. I can't. Yes, you can, Sarah said softly. She's talking to you. I wiped my eyes and continued. Asterisk asterisk if you're reading this, it means I couldn't stay with you as long as I wanted. Please don't ever believe that I loved you any less than anyone else. You and Lily are my greatest blessings. That asterisk asterisk a tear landed on the paper. I whispered, she loved me. Sarah nodded without saying a word. I kept reading. Asterisk asterisk life will not always be fair, but never let anyone decide your worth. You are kind, brave, and stronger than you know. Promise me that you will never accept a life where you are treated as if you matter less than others. That asterisk asterisk I closed my eyes. I broke that promise. No, Sarah replied gently. You were only a child. I took a deep breath and continued. Asterisk asterisk one day you will face difficult choices. Some people will disappoint you. Some may even betray you. Don't let bitterness become your home. Build a life filled with love, honesty, and self-respect instead. That asterisk asterisk I couldn't stop crying. For years I had wondered if my mother would have defended me. Now I finally had my answer. She already had. She simply hadn't lived long enough to keep protecting me. I folded the letter against my chest. I've missed her every day. I know. Sarah poured us both a cup of tea. After a few minutes, she opened another folder from the wooden box. There is something else. What is it? Your mother's trust fund. I looked at her in confusion. My what? Before she died, she set aside money for you and Lily. I stared at her. Money? She nodded. It was supposed to be divided equally between both of you when you became adults. My heartbeat quickened. I've never heard about this. That's because Robert controlled it after she passed away. I felt sick. Are you saying Dad had access to it? Yes. And he never told me? I don't believe he did. I stood up and began pacing across the room. This can't be real. I wish it wasn't. How much money are we talking about? I don't know the exact amount. But enough to matter. Sarah looked me in the eyes. Yes. I stopped walking. So everything I've struggled through. She nodded sadly. You may never have needed to. I laughed bitterly. I worked after school to buy clothes. I know. I slept on the floor. I know. I skipped college because I couldn't afford it. Sarah lowered her head. I know. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Finally I asked, what do I do now? I already made one phone call. You did? To someone I trust. A knock echoed through the house. Sarah smiled. She's here. A woman wearing a navy business suit stepped inside carrying a leather briefcase. She looked confident but kind. Ethan? Yes. She offered her hand. I'm Grace Miller. I shook it. Nice to meet you. I'm an attorney. Sarah closed the door behind her. I asked Grace to help us. Grace placed several folders on the coffee table. I've reviewed the documents Sarah kept. What do you think? She looked serious. I believe there are enough records to begin an investigation. My stomach tightened. Into my father? Yes. What happens if you're right? We request bank records, trust documents, and financial statements. And if the money is gone? She answered honestly. Then we find out where it went. I looked down at my mother's letter still resting in my hands. I don't want revenge. Grace nodded. I understand. I just want the truth. And that's exactly where we'll start. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe my life wasn't already written. Maybe I could still change it. As I prepared to leave, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lily. Asterisk asterisk, don't forget. The wedding is next Saturday. I really hope you'll come. Asterisk asterisk, I stared at the screen. Only a few hours earlier, I had discovered my mother's love, a hidden trust fund, and the possibility that my own father had stolen from me. Yet Lily still believed everything was normal. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. Grace gathered her files and looked at me. I'll contact the bank first thing tomorrow. Thank you. She smiled. Don't thank me yet. Why not? Because I have a feeling this family's biggest secret hasn't been uncovered. I watched her leave. Something told me she was right. The truth was finally coming. And this time, it wasn't going to stay buried. And this time, it wasn't going to stay buried. I barely slept that night. My mother's letter stayed on the nightstand beside my mattress. Every time I looked at it, I remembered her words. Asterisk, never let anyone decide your worth. Asterisk, for years, I had done exactly that. The next morning, I stood in the middle of my room and looked around. The empty shelf. The thin mattress on the floor. The cracked walls. I whispered to myself, I'm done. My phone rang. It was Noah. Morning. Morning. You sound different. I made a decision. What kind? I'm leaving. There was a short silence before he laughed. About time. You don't think I'm overreacting? Ethan, you've been living like a guest in your own home for 12 years. You're not overreacting. You're finally choosing yourself. His words gave me strength. Can you help me move? I'll be there in 30 minutes. Thanks. You don't have to thank me. An hour later, Noah parked his pickup truck outside. He walked into my room and looked around. So this is really all you have? I nodded. Everything else is gone. He looked at the empty shelf. I still can't believe your father did that. Neither can I. We packed my clothes, a few books, my work tools, and the framed picture of my grandfather. It all fit into a handful of boxes. 12 years of living in that house. reduced to almost nothing. As we carried the last box into the hallway, Dad walked out of the living room. "What are you doing?" "I'm moving." He frowned. "Moving where?" "My own apartment." He laughed. "Don't be ridiculous." "I'm serious." "You'll waste money." "I'd rather waste money than waste another year here." His face hardened. "So this is because of those toys?" "This is because of everything. I already told you why I sold them." "You told me a lie." "I did what I had to do." "No." I looked directly into his eyes. "You did what was easiest for you." He stepped closer. "I've provided for this family." I shook my head. "You provided for Lily." His jaw tightened. "Watch your mouth. For once, you should listen instead." Noah quietly stood beside the front door, giving me space. Dad pointed toward my room. "You've lived here rent-free." I paid with 12 years of silence. What does that even mean? It means I accepted things no child should accept. You always had food. I worked for most of it. You had a roof. I slept on the floor. You had family. I laughed sadly. I kept telling myself that. Before he could answer, Lily rushed downstairs. "What's going on?" "Dad," I said quietly, "tell her." Robert crossed his arms. "Your brother is leaving because he wants attention." Lily looked at me. "Is that true?" I smiled bitterly. "Do you really believe that?" "I don't know what to believe anymore." "You could start by believing what you've seen your whole life." She frowned. "What does that mean?" "You had your own room." "So?" "I slept on the floor." "I didn't make you." "No." I nodded slowly. "But you never asked why." She looked away. "I thought, that's just how things were." "Exactly." Silence filled the hallway. I picked up my last box. Lily suddenly spoke. "Ethan." I stopped. "Please don't ruin my wedding." I turned around. "You still think that's what this is about?" "I don't want everyone fighting." "I didn't start this." She bit her lip. "Dad says you're angry because I'm getting married." I couldn't believe it. "So that's the story now?" She stayed quiet. I walked closer. "Lily, listen to me." She finally looked at me. "I've never hated you." Her eyes softened. "I hated feeling invisible." She didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe deep down she finally understood. I walked past both of them and opened the front door. Behind me, Dad shouted, "If you leave now, don't expect me to help you later." I didn't even turn around. I stopped expecting your help a long time ago. Outside, Noah loaded the final box into the truck. As we drove away, I looked at the house through the side mirror. It became smaller with every passing second. "So?" Noah said. "How do you feel?" I thought for a moment. "Scared." "Anything else?" "Lighter." He smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." Half an hour later, we reached my apartment. It wasn't fancy. 1 bedroom. Small kitchen. Old wooden floors. But when I carried my mattress inside, something felt different. For the first time in 12 years. It wasn't going on the floor. Noah helped me assemble a simple bed frame. When we finished, I sat down on the mattress. I couldn't stop smiling. "This feels strange." "What does?" "Having my own bed." Noah laughed softly. "You deserve it." After he left, I lay on my back and stared at the ceiling. No shouting. No favoritism. No feeling like I didn't belong. Just silence. Peaceful silence. Then my phone rang. "Grace." I answered immediately. "Hello?" "Ethan, I need you to come to my office tomorrow morning." My heart skipped a beat. "Did you find something?" "I found much more than I expected." "What is it?" There was a long pause. Then Grace said the words that made my blood run cold. "I've uncovered financial records that could expose everything your father has been hiding, colon. I've uncovered financial records that could expose everything your father has been hiding." Grace's words echoed in my mind all night. The next morning, I sat across from her in her office. Several folders covered her desk. She looked at me with a serious expression. "I verified the trust fund." I leaned forward. "And?" "Your mother created it exactly as Sarah said." My hands tightened. "So it was real?" "Yes." "What happened to it?" Grace opened another file. Large withdrawals were made over many years. By my father? She nodded. The signatures match Robert's. I stared at the documents. Can he explain them? He'll have to. I looked down. I never wanted this. I know. But the truth doesn't disappear because it's uncomfortable. I took a deep breath. What happens now? We've already requested a formal investigation. Will it take long? No. She closed the folder. But there's something else. What? I think you should attend Lily's wedding. I looked surprised. After everything? Yes. Why? Because whatever happens next will affect the entire family. I wasn't sure she was right. But I agreed. A week later, I stood outside the wedding venue wearing the only suit I owned. Luxury cars filled the parking lot. Beautiful flowers lined the entrance. Guests laughed as they walked inside. For a moment, I wondered if I should leave. Then Noah appeared beside me. You came. I almost didn't. You'd regret it. I know. He smiled. I'm here if you need me. Thanks. Together we entered the hall. The room was filled with music and conversation. Then Lily noticed me. She smiled nervously and walked over. I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure either. I'm glad you're here. I looked at her wedding dress. You look happy. I want today to be perfect. I didn't know how to answer. Before I could speak, Dad joined us. His smile disappeared the moment he saw me. I didn't expect you. I was invited. He forced another smile as nearby guests watched. Let's not cause any problems. I didn't come here to fight. Good. Lily looked relieved. I'm going to check on Daniel. She hurried away. Dad lowered his voice. You've already embarrassed this family enough. I looked straight into his eyes. The truth embarrasses people who lie. His expression hardened. You still believe those stories? I believe facts. You've always been ungrateful. I laughed quietly. I used to think that too. Before he could answer, the ceremony began. Guests took their seats. I sat beside Noah near the back. Daniel stood at the altar looking nervous. The music started. Lily walked slowly down the aisle. For a brief moment, everything seemed peaceful. Then the large entrance doors opened again. Every head turned. Grace walked inside carrying a leather briefcase. Behind her stood two investigators. The room fell silent. Robert's face immediately lost its color. Grace approached calmly. I'm sorry for the interruption. The wedding planner stepped forward. This is a private ceremony. Grace nodded. I understand. She looked directly at Robert. But this matter cannot wait. Dad forced a smile. What are you talking about? Grace opened her briefcase. Robert Carter, these documents contain evidence that funds belonging to Ethan Carter's trust were withdrawn over many years without authorization. The room exploded with whispers. Lily looked confused. Dad. Robert laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. Grace calmly placed copies of the records on a nearby table. Bank statements. She placed another document down. Trust records. Then another. Withdrawal history. Dad's hands began shaking. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. Daniel stepped away from the altar. What trust fund? Lily looked at her father. Dad, what is she talking about? Robert avoided her eyes. There is no trust. Grace quietly answered. There is. She handed Lily a copy of the original documents signed by my mother. Lily read the first page. Her face turned pale. Mom, left money for both of us. Grace nodded. Equal shares. Lily slowly looked at Robert. You never told me. He remained silent. She raised her voice. You never told either of us. Guests continued whispering. Several relatives stared at Dad in disbelief. An older uncle stepped forward. Robert, is this true? Dad snapped. Stay out of this. Daniel looked at me. Ethan. I slowly nodded. I only learned the truth a few days ago. He looked heartbroken. I can't believe this. Grace spoke again. The investigation also shows that proceeds from Ethan's collectible sale were used to cover personal business debts. Lily stared at her father. The toys. Robert whispered, I had no choice. You lied to me too. I was protecting you. No. Tears filled her eyes. You were protecting yourself. Daniel slowly removed the ring from his finger. The entire hall became silent. Lily looked at him in panic. Daniel? He couldn't meet her eyes. I love you. Then don't leave. I can't marry into a family built on lies. He placed the ring on a nearby table. I'm sorry. He turned and walked toward the exit. Lily reached for him. Please. He never looked back. She collapsed into tears. The wedding music had stopped. The guests stood frozen. I watched everything unfold with a heavy heart. I had come hoping for peace. Instead, the truth had shattered everything. And I knew our family would never be the same again. I watched everything unfold with a heavy heart. I had come hoping for peace. Instead, the truth had shattered everything. And I knew our family would never be the same again. The wedding ended before it truly began. Guests quietly picked up their coats and left the hall, whispering to one another. Some looked at me with sympathy. Others looked at my father with disappointment. Noah walked beside me as we headed toward the parking lot. You okay? He asked. I let out a long breath. I don't even know how to answer that. You didn't do this. It feels like I did. He stopped walking and faced me. No, Ethan. The truth did this. Your father made these choices years ago. I never wanted Lily's wedding destroyed. I know. I looked back at the hall. I wanted answers, not this. Noah placed a hand on my shoulder. Sometimes answers break things that were already cracked. His words stayed with me all the way home. The next morning my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Some relatives wanted to know if the documents were real. Others wanted to apologize for never noticing how I had been treated. I answered only a few calls. I wasn't ready. Later that afternoon, Grace called. The investigation has officially started. What happens now? The court approved access to your father's financial records. So it's serious. It always was. She paused. We've also found several transfers connected to your mother's trust. I closed my eyes. So he really spent it? Yes. Can he deny it? Not with the evidence we have. I thanked her and ended the call. For the first time, I realized there was no going back. 3 days passed. Then I heard another knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, Aunt Sarah smiled gently. I brought dinner. I laughed for the first time in days. You always know what I need. She stepped inside. You look exhausted. I feel exhausted. We sat at the small kitchen table. She looked at me carefully. Do you regret telling the truth? I thought for a long moment. I regret the pain. But I don't regret the truth. She nodded proudly. Your mother would be proud of you. Those words meant more than she probably realized. Meanwhile, news spread through the family. Relatives who had always admired my father suddenly stopped calling him. Neighbors whispered whenever he walked outside. His former business partners refused to defend him. The man who had spent years pretending everything was perfect was finally running out of excuses. A few days later, Noah called. Want to grab coffee? Sure. When I arrived, he wasn't alone. A young woman stood beside him. She smiled politely. Ethan? Yes. I'm Emma. I shook her hand. Nice to meet you. She looked nervous. I've been Lily's best friend since high school. I recognized her name immediately. Oh. She sighed. I should have spoken sooner. What do you mean? I saw the favoritism. I looked at her in surprise. You did. Everyone close to your family did. Then why didn't anyone say anything? She lowered her head. We thought it wasn't our place. I smiled sadly. That seems to be everyone's answer. I'm sorry. She looked genuinely ashamed. I visited Lily yesterday. How is she? Broken. I stayed quiet. Emma continued. She's finally asking herself questions she avoided for years. Like what? Why you always got less? I looked out the cafe window. I wish she had asked those questions years ago. So does she. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lily. Can we meet? Alone. Please. I stared at the screen. For several minutes, I didn't reply. No one noticed. Who is it? Lily. What does she want? To talk. He nodded slowly. And what do you want? I wasn't sure. Part of me wanted to ignore her. Another part remembered my mother's letter. Don't let bitterness become your home. I finally typed a reply. Tomorrow. Noon. Riverside Park. A few seconds later she answered. Thank you. I slipped my phone into my pocket. Noah looked at me. You think she's finally ready to listen? I looked toward the fading sunset outside the cafe. I don't know. But for the first time in our lives, I think we're finally going to have an honest conversation. And somehow, that scared me more than every argument we'd ever had. The next morning, I arrived at Riverside Park 10 minutes early. The air was cool, and the river moved quietly beside the walking path. I spotted Lily sitting alone on a wooden bench. She looked nothing like the confident bride I had seen a week earlier. Her eyes were red from crying. When she noticed me, she stood. Hi. Hi. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you for coming." I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you. I sat on the opposite end of the bench. So, what did you want to say? She stared at the ground. I've been thinking about everything. I waited. I kept asking myself one question. What question? How did I never see what was happening to you? I gave a sad smile. You saw it. She looked at me. No. Yes, Lily. I didn't understand it. You accepted it. Tears filled her eyes. I did. The honesty surprised me. She wiped her face. I always noticed you had less. I stayed quiet. I noticed your room. She looked away. I noticed the mattress on the floor. My chest tightened. I noticed Dad bought me things you never got. I asked softly, why didn't you say anything? She took a shaky breath. Because I convinced myself it was normal. It wasn't. I know that now. Silence settled between us. Then she looked directly into my eyes. I'm sorry. Her voice broke. I should have been your sister. I felt years of anger rise inside me. I needed someone. I know. I was just a kid. I know. I kept waiting for someone to ask if I was okay. She covered her face with her hands. I'm so sorry. I looked toward the river. I can't erase what happened. I know. But, thank you for finally telling me the truth. She nodded through her tears. I don't expect forgiveness. I can't give it today. I understand. But maybe someday. She gave me a small, hopeful smile. I'll wait. That afternoon, I received another call. Dad. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Hello. Ethan. His voice sounded tired. Can we talk? I closed my eyes. Where? My house. For a moment, I considered saying no. Then I remembered my mother's words about courage. An hour later, I stood inside the same living room where I had spent so many silent years. Everything looked the same. But I didn't feel the same. Dad walked in slowly. He looked older. His shoulders were bent. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. He sat across from me. I made mistakes. I didn't answer. I know you're angry. I'm more than angry. He lowered his head. I want to apologize. I waited. I'm sorry everything happened this way. I frowned. Everything? Yes. What exactly are you apologizing for? He hesitated. I didn't handle things well. I shook my head. That's not enough. He looked confused. What do you mean? You keep talking about what happened. So? You never talk about what you did. Silence filled the room. I leaned forward. Do you know what hurt the most? The toys? No. The money? No. The inheritance. I slowly shook my head. The floor. He looked at me, confused. The floor? Yes. You keep thinking this story is about money. It isn't. No. I felt tears forming. The mattress wasn't the problem. Then what was? It reminded me every single night that I mattered less. His eyes widened. I watched Lily sleep in a beautiful bedroom. I swallowed hard. I slept on the floor. I told myself it was temporary. It became 12 years. I thought you didn't mind. I was a child. My voice cracked. I kept believing that if I worked harder, if I stayed quiet, if I became better. I looked directly at him. Maybe my own father would finally choose me. He covered his face. I never realized. No. You never wanted to. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I'm sorry. This time his voice sounded real. I failed you. Yes. I failed your mother. Yes. I failed this family. I didn't answer. Because there was nothing left to say. Weeks later, the court reached its decision. Grace called me with the news. The judge ruled in your favor. I closed my eyes. What happens now? Your father has been ordered to repay what remains of your inheritance. I didn't feel victorious. Only quiet. Justice had finally arrived. But it had come far too late to give me back the childhood I had lost. As I ended the call, I looked out my apartment window. For the first time in years, I realized I wasn't carrying the weight alone anymore. The past would always be part of me. But it no longer controlled where I was going next. For the first time in years, I realized I wasn't carrying the weight alone anymore. The past would always be part of me. But it no longer controlled where I was going next. 6 months passed. Life didn't become perfect overnight, but it finally started moving in the right direction. Every morning, I woke up in my own apartment. Every night, I climbed into my own bed. Sometimes I still caught myself smiling before I fell asleep. After spending 12 years on a mattress on the floor, even an ordinary bed felt like a dream. One Saturday morning, Noah knocked on my door carrying 2 cups of coffee. Busy? Not today. He handed me a cup. I heard the paperwork is finally finished. I smiled. It is. So, how does it feel? I looked around my apartment. Peaceful. You earned it. I don't think I believed that until recently. Noah laughed. I've been telling you that since the day we met. And I should have listened. He looked around the room. So, what's next? I grinned. I signed a lease yesterday. For another apartment. No. I reached into a drawer and handed him a set of keys. For my shop. His eyes grew wide. You bought one? I rented it. What kind of shop? The kind Grandpa would have loved. A week later, I unlocked the front door of my new business for the first time. The sign outside read, Second Chance Collectibles and Restoration. I ran my hand across the wooden counter. Shelves lined the walls, waiting to be filled with vintage toys, model cars, comic books, and restored family treasures. It wasn't just a business. It was a promise. A promise that memories deserved to be protected. Noah looked around with a huge smile. You really did it. I finally built something that belongs to me. I'm proud of you. Thanks. A few days later, Lily visited the shop. She stood quietly near the entrance. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me. I wasn't sure either. She looked around. It's beautiful. Thank you. I've been volunteering at the community center. I smiled. That's good. I'm trying to become a better person. I can see that. She looked down. I know I can't change the past. No. But I don't want to keep running from it. I walked over to her. I don't hate you anymore. She looked up. Really? I still need time. I understand. She smiled through tears. But I'm grateful you gave me another chance. Before leaving, she hugged me. This time, I hugged her back. The pain hadn't disappeared. But healing had finally begun. My relationship with Dad was different. We spoke only occasionally. He never asked me for forgiveness again. Instead, he quietly accepted the consequences of his choices. He sold the old house to repay part of the inheritance and moved into a small apartment alone. The proud man who once believed he could hide every mistake had finally learned that truth always catches up. One rainy afternoon, the bell above my shop door rang. I looked up and smiled. Marcus. He carried a long wooden box in both hands. I thought you might like this. What is it? You'll see. He placed the box on the counter. My hands trembled as I slowly opened it. The moment I lifted the lid, my heart stopped. Inside rested my grandfather's handmade wooden train. It looked exactly the way I remembered. I could barely breathe. Marcus. I bought it back. I looked at him in disbelief. You did? He nodded. I knew it belonged with you. Tears filled my eyes. I don't know how to thank you. You already have. When? The day you reminded me that some things are worth more than money. I gently picked up the train. My grandfather's carving marks were still there. So were the tiny scratches I had made as a child while pretending it was crossing mountains and rivers. For the first time in years, I felt like I had recovered a piece of myself. That evening, I placed the wooden train on a brand new shelf in my bedroom. It stood alone for only a moment. Then I added a framed photograph of my mother. Beside it, I placed a picture of Grandpa and me. I stepped back and smiled. My past was no longer something I wanted to escape. It had become the foundation of the life I was building. Later that night, I turned off the bedroom light and lay down on my own bed. The room was quiet. No shouting. No loneliness. No feeling that I mattered less than someone else. I closed my eyes and remembered my mother's letter. Never let anyone decide your worth. For years, I had searched for revenge. In the end, I discovered something far greater. The greatest revenge was never destroying the people who hurt me. It was refusing to let their choices destroy me. I had lost my childhood toys. I had lost 12 years. I had lost the family I wished I had. But I had finally found myself. As sleep slowly came, I looked one last time at the wooden train resting safely on the shelf. This time, no one could take it away. Because the most valuable thing I owned was no longer sitting on that shelf. It was the peace I had finally found inside my own heart.